When we talk about sacrifice, we usually frame it as the highest proof of love or loyalty, a glowing metal pinned on the heart. I want you to hold that shiny vision for exactly 3 seconds and then smash it against the floor. Because tonight we are sweeping up the shards to expose the darker truth. Most of us surrender time, money, dreams, even our mental health, not out of pure devotion but out of confused obligation, a hidden guilt, or hunger for applause. The opening dilemma is brutal. How can something that looks so noble on Instagram warp into a life-size Trojan horse wheeled straight through the gates of our future? I promise this isn't a sermon, it's an autopsy. We will dissect the anatomy of misguided sacrifice, trace the psychological arteries that feed it, and then engineer practical methods to cauterize the wound before it drains our best years. Picture a firefighter running into a burning building to rescue a stranger. That's textbook heroism. Now picture a college student choosing a major she hates purely to satisfy family expectations. That's a quieter blaze, but the smoke inhalation can last decades. Both acts involve giving up something precious, yet one renews life, the other mortgages it. Our first philosophical pivot: the morality of a sacrifice is measured not by the size of what is given, but by the clarity of the motive and the alignment with authentic self-value. Super deep question number 1: if you stripped every sacrifice you make down to its motive, would it reveal love or leverage? Sit with that. Evolutionary biology tells us altruism evolved because it increased group survival. But the same instinct mutates into self-betrayal when social approval becomes the primary currency. Nietzsche warned of slave morality, choices driven by fear of judgment rather than pursuit of greatness. In the first minute of this video, I want you to recognize that most bad trade-offs are financed by that fear. We will hack its supply chain because fear, like any cartel, crumbles when the funding dries up.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Let's accelerate inquiry from minute 1 to 3. I'll guide you through a rapid montage of real-world examples. A high school prodigy sacrifices sleep to maintain a perfect GPA, not for mastery, but so no one questions her worth. A son drains his savings to bail out a reckless sibling, secretly resenting the role of family ATM. A humanitarian worker burns out in year 2 because his identity fused with the praise he received for selflessness, and now he can't step back without feeling worthless. Notice a pattern. The sacrifices look virtuous but are powered by a hidden transaction approval in exchange for self-neglect. At the 3-minute mark, let's fire a re-engagement quote. When you give from a place of scarcity, you serve hunger, not humanity. I paraphrase the Stoic Epictetus, who insisted that no gift is wholesome if it leaves the giver impoverished in virtue or capacity. Ask yourself, have you ever donated so much emotional energy to a friend that you couldn't function at work the next day? That's charity turning cannibal. True generosity should operate like a well, replenishing groundwater even as it flows outward. If what you call sacrifice leaves you parched, the well is structurally flawed. Now we enter minutes 3 to 6 mid-video intensity. Imagine a Mr. Beast-style challenge where I hand 10 volunteers $1,000 each and tell them they can donate as much as they like to a cause on live stream. Hidden twist: I'm also tracking their cortisol levels in real time. As expected, the biggest donors bask in the chat's applause. But here's the plot grenade. The top donor's stress markers skyrocket because he gave every dollar to prove moral superiority, not from alignment with his values. Meanwhile, A woman who keeps $700 and donates $300 to a local shelter, an issue she cares about deeply, shows a net drop in stress hormones and an increase in oxytocin. Physiology exposes motive better than Instagram captions ever will. Quick scene changes unravel the philosophical conflict. A monk renounces possessions to attain freedom. Cut to an office worker staying late every night. Not for mission, but to avoid the awkward silence of home. Both give up leisure, but one gains spiritual spaciousness, while the other accumulates quiet despair. Practical life advice here: before you sacrifice, name the harvest you expect. If the crop is resentment-proof, proceed. If it smells of martyrdom, abort. At the 6-minute spike, let's drop another insight. Sacrificing for the wrong reason often masquerades as fate. We say, I had no choice, yet 90% of the time choices existed. We just feared the social cost. Camus wrote about the benign indifference of the universe. In plain English, the sky doesn't care if you people please yourself into oblivion. Therefore, cosmic permission slips abound. You can step off the hamster wheel anytime. Deep question: what new universe might open if you decline the next request that feels like emotional blackmail? Zoom out now to the cultural panorama. Many traditions glorify self-denial: the soldier's last stand, the mother who eats last, the entrepreneur who grinds all night. These stories inspire but also indoctrinate. They teach us to equate worthiness with exhaustion. Sociologist Marcel Mauss noticed gift economies rely on obligatory reciprocity. Gifts must circulate, otherwise debt forms. Modern culture hacked this loop by lacing it with shame. We give not just to reciprocate, but to earn a seat at communal tables. When giving mutates into bargaining chips for belonging, the original goodwill corrodes. So your job is to convert transactions back into authentically chosen exchanges. Translation: if the emotional invoice isn't payable with joy, renegotiate the contract. Let's prototype a tool set. The first is the motive MRI. Before a significant sacrifice, quitting a job, postponing studies, lending money, ask 3 scanning questions. 1. Will this action nourish my core values or merely patch someone else's leak? 2. If no one applauded, would I still proceed? 3. Does this strengthen or shrink my capacity to contribute in the future? If you score 2 no answers, hit pause. You are about to bleed for applause rather than bleed for purpose. The second tool is the reversibility check. Misguided sacrifices often pretend to be irreversible when they're not. For instance, taking a career detour to support a partner doesn't doom your trajectory. Skills compound across sectors. However, surrendering your mental health for an overbearing boss can yield damage harder to reverse. So map the potential rebound timeline. Sacrifice becomes strategic when recovery is plausible and benefit is enduring. Third, build a micro-boundary habit. Every day, practice one small refusal, decline a meeting that lacks agenda, skip a social event when exhausted, say no to extra fries if you promised yourself health. Tiny refusals recalibrate neural circuits for agency. Eventually, bigger discards like walking away from manipulative relationships become feasible. Now consider the hormonal loop of sacrifice. Chronic self-abandonment amplifies cortisol, weakens the immune system, and ironically reduces empathy, turning you into a hollow vessel who can't actually help anyone. The poet Rumi advised, "Never give from the depths of your well, but from your overflow." Neuroscience backs him. Altruism fueled by oxytocin boosts well-being. Altruism fueled by cortisol depletes it. So schedule rituals that refill you: meditation, supportive friendships, solo walks non-negotiable. Your overflow is another person's lifeline. Let's take a quick detour through economics. Sunk cost fallacy keeps people in disastrous sacrifices long after the yield expired. You already spent 5 years in an unrewarding relationship, so you stay another 5 to justify the first half. But past cost is tuition, not destiny. Logical move: salvage the lesson, abandon the caboose. Every minute in misaligned sacrifice compounds opportunity cost. Remember, not choosing is also a choice, often the most expensive one. Here's a visceral Miss Beast-inspired demonstration I ran at a charity drive. I set up 2 donation boxes, box A labeled "Give until it hurts," box B labeled "Give so it heals." Over 4 hours, box B raised twice the amount with fewer donors, because people who dropped bills there tended to share the initiative on their feeds, magnetizing more aligned contributors. Positive motive multiplied reach. Inverse effect: box A donors often left quickly, head down. Mirroring guilt-based tithing. Insight: righteous sacrifice scales, guilt sacrifice stagnates. Let's pepper in a technique from cognitive behavioral therapy. Reframe "I must" into "I choose." Instead of "I must tutor my cousin every weekend," say "I choose to tutor because family uplift is my value." If the sentence feels deceitful, adjust choice or drop task. Language rewires accountability: must breed victimhood, chooses breed sovereignty. Before I close this segment, picture 2 concentric circles. Inner circle, self-care. Outer circle, contributions. Many of us invert them, hoping outer sacrifice will backfill inner deficits. That's like watering plants with the hose disconnected from the tap. Put self-care center stage, then sacrificial streams flow sustainable and clear. I think back to the last time you pulled an all-nighter for a project that wasn't even yours. A teammate dropped the ball. A committee stalled. A family member procrastinated, so you strapped on the cape and whispered, "Don't worry, I've got it." In that moment, adrenaline felt like purpose, and every yawning sip of coffee tasted like moral greatness. Yet 2 days later, when no one remembered the miracle hours you gave away, resentment crept in and asked, "Why does saving the day leave me feeling robbed?" Welcome to the hero complex, the most seductive counterfeit of meaning on the market. Tonight we dissect why we trade our souls for applause and how to break the loop without abandoning genuine generosity. Psychologists trace the hero complex to triangulation: hero, victim, and villain. When you play hero, you require a victim to rescue and a villain to defeat, even if the villain is simply the ticking clock. That triangle flatters the ego because it casts you as plot center, but it secretly cements dependency cycles. If the victim ever stands up or the villain evaporates, your identity loses oxygen. Super deep question: who are you when no one needs rescuing? If the answer panics you, the cape owns you. Minute 1, hook secured, now let's show the stakes. In a recent Miss Bree-style setup, we assembled 2 teams to construct emergency shelters after a simulated natural disaster. Team Alpha contained certified architects and builders focused on empowering locals to replicate designs. Team Beta starred charismatic do-gooders eager for live stream glory, promising to do all the heavy lifting themselves. 12 hours in, Beta finished first shelter and collapsed, leaving villagers unable to maintain it. Alpha finished slower but left behind trained crews and manuals. Livestream analytics revealed an ironic curve. Beta's initial viewer spike plummeted when their shelters failed, while Alpha's steady progress attracted long-tail engagement, donations, and volunteer signups. A viral lesson: the world eventually smells the difference between spotlight virtue and lasting value. To accelerate philosophical inquiry, we compress centuries of wisdom into 90 seconds. Aristotle warned that virtuous acts require right reason. Kierkegaard cautioned that wanting to be a savior can mask despair over one's own unfinished self. Contemporary philosopher Martha Nussbaum notes that compassion without humility mutates into paternalism. Each thinker points to the same blind spot. When sacrifice is driven by the need to feel indispensable, the potential recipients become props, not partners. Translate to daily life. When you rewrite your friend's resume instead of teaching him how, you buy short-term gratitude at the cost of his learning curve. The yield is social applause. The hidden fee is collective stagnation. 3-minute mark re-engagement bomb incoming. If your sacrifice eliminates another's agency, you might be stealing destiny disguised as charity. Let that sentence pierce. Reflect on any relationship where your well-intended over-functioning reduced someone else to under-functioning. Parents who finish kids' science projects, managers who micromanage, lovers who solve every trivial inconvenience. Each hero gesture cancels an opportunity for the other person to author their own competence script. Practical pivot: replace rescue with scaffolding. Offer tools, not takeovers. Scaffolders sleep better and live longer, according to a 2022 longitudinal study on caretaking stress, because they witness growth instead of cyclical crisis. Minutes, 3 to 6 dial-up conflict and momentum. Imagine a fast-cut montage, a non-profit founder on stage receiving a humanitarian medal, while staff whisper about burnout. A startup CEO celebrated for pulling 120-hour weeks, while his kids stare at an empty dinner chair. An eldest sibling funding household bills while younger ones learn financial helplessness. Each scene makes heroism look suspiciously like slow-motion self-destruction. To keep retention high, we drop a live pulse monitor on screen. Heart rate variability nosedives every time these heroes recount the praise that keeps them locked in the cycle. Science translation: cortisol spikes when external validation governs internal choices. At 6 minutes, second bolt of insight. We demonstrate on camera what I call the applause withdrawal experiment. 10 volunteers known for chronic overgiving are placed in 2 rooms. For 3 hours, room 1 participants perform their usual helpful tasks, organizing files, solving puzzles, but receive 0 feedback. Room 2 participants do nothing except meditate. Afterward, we measure mood and self-worth. Counterintuitive result: room 1's average self-esteem drops 30% without applause. Room 2's rises 12% after silent reflection. Conclusion: if praise is the drug, lack of praise triggers withdrawal symptoms. We need detox before we can donate ourselves without strings attached. Let's pivot from diagnosis to antidote. The first medicine is motive transparency. Before agreeing to sacrifice, light 3 internal torches. Torch of intent. Am I doing this to alleviate genuine suffering or to dodge personal emptiness? Torch of sustainability. Can I repeat this gift tomorrow without harming my health or priorities? Torch of consent. Have I asked the recipient whether they prefer this help or another form of support? If any torch flickers, recalibrate. Repeat enough times and you forge neural pathways where authenticity outranks applause. The crowd's roar becomes optional background noise. Second medicine, diversify identity portfolios. Heroes collapse when one narrative monopolizes their self-worth. Draft a pie chart of roles: friend, learner, artist, athlete, citizen, spiritual seeker. The bigger the slice variety, the less temptation to inflate the hero slice until it engulfs the plate. A balanced identity hedges against social market crashes. If one role underperforms, others keep you solvent. Third medicine comes from Stoic negative visualization. Every morning envision yourself declining a dramatic rescue and watching observers judge you. Feel the sting, then notice it fade. Practicing disapproval exposure inoculates you against real-world criticism. Seneca wrote that fortune injures only the unprepared, same with opinion storms. Once you can stand in a hurricane of unmet expectations and still hear your inner compass, misguided sacrifice loses leverage. Now, a practical micro-challenge for viewers: choose one repetitive hero act in your life: editing colleagues' slides, covering weekend shifts, funding a friend's lifestyle. For the next week, set conditions. You will help only if the requester drafts a plan showing how your assistance leads to their independent capability. Record outcomes. Many will self-select out. A few will level up. You regain hours of life. Post your results. We'll feature the most transformative stories in a follow-up episode, because replication accelerates cultural change. We must also address collective hero folklore, say, company mission statements that lionize sacrifice. We eat, sleep, breathe customer obsession. Sounds inspiring, erupts in burnout lawsuits. Healthy cultures celebrate smart effort, adequate rest, transparent scope. If you're a leader, audit incentive structures. Are promotions tied to martyr metrics or to sustainable results? Mr. Beast channel rule: no challenge runs more than 24 hours without rotating crews. Exhaustion makes sloppy videos and sloppy ethics. Deep question checkpoint: whose crisis would vanish if you stopped enabling it? Enabling often masquerades as empathy, but is actually anxiety management. We'd rather overhelp than face the discomfort of another's struggle. Courage sometimes looks like stepping back and trusting another's latent capacity. That trust is itself a sacrificial offering of ego, and paradoxically it multiplies communal power. Let's venture into spiritual terrain. Religious texts exalt sacrifice, yet the nuance is rich. The Bhagavad Gita praises detached action, service free from craving results. Christian theology distinguishes between self-offering in love and self-harm in pride. Zen teaches dana, giving that purifies greed rather than inflating identity. Across traditions, the litmus test is inner freedom. If sacrifice chains you tighter to reputation, it is counterfeit devotion. Build an altar of freedom. Commit to acts that leave you lighter, not heavier. Now, economics returns with a social impact lens. Effective altruism quantifies utility per dollar. The hero complex hates such calculus because numbers strip away romantic struggle and demand efficient humility. Embrace the math. Sometimes wiring $100 to malaria net distribution saves more lives than flying across continents for a photo op volunteer stint. Let reason tether compassion. Together they guide sacrifices that scale. Technology can help. Use apps like GiveWell dashboards or time tracking journals to visualize returns on your energy. A data-driven cape upgrade. When numbers show your late-night slide edits increase project accuracy by 2%, but cost you 30% family presence. You can renegotiate tasks or teach teammates so gains persist without continuous bleed. Let's zoom into embodiment again. Chronic hero posture, shoulders forward, neck crane signals the nervous system to remain on alert. A reverse engineer with power poses, stand feet hip width, arms wide, inhale dignity. The body teaches the brain it is safe to stop clutching the world's problems. Pair this with vagus nerve-activating humming. Yes, hum like monks or bees for 60 seconds. Heart rate steadies, mirror neurons of calm propagate to those around you. Becoming a lighthouse of composure can outperform 10 extra tasks of frantic aid. Time to plant seeds for systemic reform. Imagine schools rewarding collaborative resilience over individual hero antics. Group grades that allocate points for effective delegation, not silent shoulder-bearing. Students learn early that longevity beats martyrdom, and the pipeline of burned-out adults shrinks. Petition your local board. Propose pilot curricula. Small civic actions proof the macro idea. As this segment glides toward closing, integrate everything into a personal policy statement, one sentence you speak aloud before major commitments. I choose sacrifices that enlarge my freedom and others' capability equally. Record it on your phone, set it as an alarm titled Reality Check. When future you tries to slip the cape on for vanity, the alarm rings. I leave you with tonight's pivotal reflection. If applause became inaudible tomorrow, no likes, no praise, no witness what acts of giving would survive the silence. Draft that list. It reveals pure generosity untouched by ego gravity. Take one slow inhale, because our final stretch is less about tearing old habits down and more about architecting something worthy to rise in their place. We have cut the counterfeit capes, audited motives like forensic accountants, and rediscovered the quiet power of saying no. Now we stand in a clearing, sacrifices laid bare of guilt, ego, and applause. The obvious question becomes, what do we build with the liberated time, money, and heartbeats? I submit that the answer is not a single monument but a renewable practice, sacred sacrifice, the disciplined art of giving that nourishes the giver, dignifies the receiver, and tilts the collective future in measurable degrees toward flourishing. Imagine you carry two invisible ledgers everywhere. Ledger 1 tracks energy that expands you, learning, play, presence, purposeful work. Ledger 2 tracks energy that contracts you, drama, status games, soul-numbing obligations. Sacred sacrifice is the deliberate transfer of overflow from Ledger 1 into the world, where it plugs existential leaks. When overflow runs low, the practice pauses. This rhythm mirrors nature. Trees photosynthesize before releasing oxygen. Rivers gather from springs before irrigating valleys. The life advice here is deceptively simple: replenish, then release. Anything else is hydraulic theft from your own future. Let's ground abstraction with a Mesmer beast scale demonstration. Picture 100 viewers, each given $100 and told, double your money in 7 days using any legal method. After the week, they must donate every cent above the original 100 to a crisis relief fund. The trick is that doubling demands creativity and risk management. Some resell thrift finds, others teach micro courses, a few code quick fire apps. 95 succeed. They gather Saturday for a live stream reveal. The collective overflow tops $22,000, dwarfing what any could have donated straight from their pockets. But the deeper metric is invisible. We track skill acquisition, confidence boosts, new friendships sparked. The crowd witnesses that the most sustainable sacrifice is surplus generated through personal growth, not subtraction from a static pie. Take that model and downscale to daily life. Suppose you allot 90 minutes in the morning for deep work, a zone where talent compounds. Out of that zone's dividends, finished manuscript pages, prototype iterations, solved algorithms, skim 10% of ideas or profits toward a cause aligned with your values. Because the contribution rides atop mastery, not depletion. It can repeat indefinitely. Philosophers call this eudaimonia, flourishing that radiates outward. Neuroscientists would note the synergy of dopamine, progress, and oxytocin, connection, bathing the nervous system. Either language says the same, overflow is self-fueling. Now let's address the structural obstacles that keep most people from ever tasting overflow. First, systemic scarcity narratives. If I don't hustle 24/7, I'll fall behind. Scarcity framing triggers tunnel vision, shrinking creative bandwidth. Antidote: periodic abundance audits. List resources, underappreciated, unused subscriptions, spare rooms, latent skills, idle network connections. Seeing abundance in ink dilates perception, inviting innovative spillways. Second obstacle, trauma loops telling you rest is laziness. Healing here involves somatic repatterning, yoga nidra, EMDR, rhythmic breathwork to reassure the limbic system that safety isn't conditional on perpetual output. Only a regulated nervous system can discern which sacrifices are life-giving. Super deep question checkpoint. If every sacrifice demanded before tomorrow noon vanished, nobody to impress, no debt to repay, where would you intuitively direct your gifted energy? Your first, unedited answer spotlights latent purpose unpolluted by duty. Write it down. It will function as North Star as we build frameworks. Framework 1, the alignment compass. Draw a circle divided into 4 quadrants labeled curiosity, competence, compassion, community. An opportunity for sacred sacrifice sits at the intersection of at least 3 quadrants. Curiosity ensures personal vitality, competence ensures effectiveness, compassion guards ethical intent, community guarantees scalability beyond ego. Every time an ask lands in your inbox, map it on the compass. If it lights up 3 zones, green light. 2 zones invite negotiation. 1 zone means gracious decline. Framework 2, the time tithe. Classic tithing gives 10% of income. Time tithing allocates 10% of waking hours to high leverage benevolence mentoring, policy advocacy, systems design. Crucially, the tithe is a ceiling, not a floor. If you routinely exceed it, scale back. The limit forces you to choose arenas where your unique edge matters most, preventing dilution into low-impact busywork. Imagine a data scientist spending her time tithe building an open data dashboard that municipal planners adopt worldwide. That beats scattering hours across random volunteer shifts that could be filled by anyone. Framework 3, the regret test, borrowed from Jeff Bezos but repurposed for giving. Visualize yourself at age 90 assessing today's potential sacrifice. Will not doing it spark regret wrinkles deeper than the effort cost? If yes, proceed. If no, preserve bandwidth. Regret forecasting uses emotion as decision analytics software, surfacing opportunities whose absence would haunt you more than their challenge intimidates you. All frameworks fail without feedback loops, so we install the impact debrief ritual. After each significant gift money, hours, social capital, ask 4 questions. Did it address root or symptom? Did it respect recipient autonomy? Did it generate capability multiplier effects? Did it deplete or expand my future giving capacity? Archive answers in a shared document if working as a team. Over quarters, patterns guide optimization. Let's weave in macro vision. Collective overflow can restructure systems. Consider the open source movement. Coders solve personal challenges, shared fixes gratis, and accidentally birthed the backbone of the modern internet. No boardroom decree orchestrated Linux. It was sacred sacrifice operating at scale. Your craft, whether filmmaking, urban design, or regenerative agriculture, could seed similar emergent utilities. The strategy is to publish blueprints, document failures transparently, and license permissively. Viral curiosity amplifies adoption, and suddenly your surplus ingenuity is upgrading communities you will never visit. Because we are philosophers too, we cannot ignore existential stakes. Sacrifice intersects with mortality. Each yes or no echoes into the finite ledger of days. Stoic thought experiment. Imagine each morning you receive a 1,000-coin purse representing attention units. Whatever remains unspent at sundown vanishes beyond retrieval. When sacrifice demands coins, interrogate value per unit. Does this purchase enduring meaning? If yes, pay gladly. If currency merely props someone else's avoidance pattern, keep your coin, they must mint their own. Now a short detour through cosmology, because perspective expands duty into wonder. Astrophysicists remind us that every atom in your bloodstream was forged in stellar furnaces. You are literally recycled star budget. Sacrifice, reframed in this cosmic math, becomes a redistribution of stardust potential from regions of surplus to regions of deficit, enabling the universe to know itself more richly. That frame evaporates pettiness. Suddenly, refactoring an open-source library at midnight feels less like nerd toil and more like cosmic housekeeping. Let's synthesize with a final Beast-level challenge you can enact locally. Rally 10 diverse neighbors for a 48-hour overflow sprint. Step 1. Each member lists a personal surplus knowledge, tools, contacts. Step 2. Identify a local pain point: food waste, digital illiteracy, park neglect. Step 3. Design a micro-intervention deploying each surplus against the pain. Live stream it, track metrics, post transparent results. The real prize isn't view counts, it's the template others adopt. Your neighborhood becomes a fractal of planetary repair. Before we land, we must address fear, the last holdout shackling healthy sacrifice. Fear that if you stop people-pleasing, community vanishes. Fear that if you aim bigger, you'll flop publicly. Neuro-linguistic reframe, trade fear questions. What if I fail? For curiosity questions, what data will failure yield? Curiosity activates exploratory dopamine paths. Fear anchors you to freeze circuits. Next time anxious hesitation arises before a purposeful but daunting gift, breathe in for 4, label sensation energy, exhale for 6, and pivot to experiment mindset. Final super deep question meant to echo long after the video ends. When your descendants sort through the artifacts of your life, digital footprints, faded journals, code commits, acts of courage, what recurring pattern of sacrifice will they trace? And what single word will they carve on its foundation stone? Choose that word now, maybe liberation, wonder, justice, belonging. Let it guide micro-decisions until pattern calcifies into legacy. We began by smashing idealized notions of sacrifice and sifting the shards for buried motives. We unmasked hero complexes feeding on applause. We have now redrawn sacrifice as a regenerative circuit, powered by authenticity, constrained by sustainability, scaled through creative overflow. The shocking reality is that sacrificing for the wrong reasons is not noble tragedy, but preventable miscalculation, and the exhilarating counterpart is that sacrificing for the right reasons becomes compounding joy, a self-fueling engine of impact. The clearing is yours. Plant wisely, water from overflow, and watch a forest of meaningful change rise where burnout once scorched the earth.